Kimberly Langwell was a 26-year-old white woman with pale skin, shoulder-length dark brown layered bob hair, narrow black-framed glasses, tired blue eyes, and a gentle, exhausted face shaped by years of stress and responsibility. She worked long evening shifts in Beaumont, Texas, usually wearing teal medical scrubs, white sneakers, and carrying a faded brown leather purse with cracked handles hanging loosely from her shoulder. On July 9, 1999, Kimberly finished another exhausting shift and slowly walked alone through a dim parking lot toward her car, completely unaware that she was about to disappear into one of Texas's most disturbing cold cases. Kimberly's mother was a short, heavy-set white woman in her late 50s with curly reddish-brown hair, worried eyes surrounded by soft wrinkles, and oversized floral pajamas she wore every evening at home. That night, she kept pacing nervously between the living room curtains and the old beige landline telephone, while Kimberly's two small children slept curled together beneath a thin blanket beside the flickering television. Every pair of headlights outside made her stop breathing for a second, because deep down she already believed something terrible had happened to her daughter. By sunrise, Beaumont police officially opened a missing persons investigation after Kimberly failed to return home or contact anyone she knew. The lead investigators were two exhausted middle-aged detectives wearing wrinkled gray 1990s suits, loosened neckties, pale, tired faces, and permanent stress buried beneath their eyes after years of ugly investigations. They searched parking lots, abandoned roads, drainage ditches, empty fields, and questioned co-workers for hours, but Kimberly had seemingly vanished without leaving behind a single obvious clue. Kimberly's co-workers described her as quiet, hardworking, emotionally drained, and completely devoted to her children despite constantly struggling with exhaustion and financial pressure. Several employees remembered watching Kimberly leave work beneath the orange parking lot lights that night, but nobody reported seeing another person approach her afterward. Detectives slowly realized they were dealing with the kind of disappearance that true crime investigators secretly fear the most, because there was almost nothing solid to follow. Kimberly's missing person posters soon covered Beaumont, spreading across gas stations, churches, grocery stores, laundromats, and rain-soaked telephone poles throughout the city. Every poster displayed the same pale young woman with shoulder-length dark brown layered bob hair, tired blue eyes, narrow black-framed glasses, and a small exhausted smile frozen forever inside old family photographs. Yet despite growing attention and endless rumors, every lead investigators chased eventually collapsed into silence and frustration. Months slowly turned into years, while Kimberly's family remained emotionally trapped inside the same terrifying unanswered night from 1999. Her mother preserved Kimberly's bedroom exactly the same way it looked before she vanished, leaving the teal scrubs folded neatly beside framed family photographs and the faded cracked brown leather purse police later recovered abandoned outside town. Every object inside the room became a painful reminder that Kimberly had disappeared without explanation and might never come home again. Kimberly's children slowly grew older, while carrying the emotional weight of never understanding what happened to their mother after she disappeared. Birthdays, school graduations, Christmas dinners, and ordinary family moments became painful reminders of the empty chair Kimberly left behind after vanishing without warning. Beaumont slowly moved on from the case, but Kimberly's family remained emotionally frozen inside a nightmare that refused to end. Rumors exploded across Beaumont because people could not understand how a young mother could disappear forever without leaving behind evidence. Some residents believed Kimberly had voluntarily abandoned her life to start over somewhere else, while others whispered darker theories involving violence, murder, and horrifying secrets hidden behind ordinary suburban walls. But the disturbing truth allegedly remained much closer than anyone could ever imagine, quietly surviving beside everyday life for decades. For years, the Beaumont Police Department kept Kimberly Langwell's case buried inside a growing stack of unsolved disappearances that nobody seemed capable of solving. Detectives came and went, evidence boxes gathered dust, and younger officers only recognized Kimberly as the pale woman with tired blue eyes staring back from old faded missing posters pinned inside storage rooms. Every time the case resurfaced, investigators reached the same terrifying conclusion because Kimberly had somehow disappeared almost without a trace. The two original detectives eventually became obsessed with the possibility that Kimberly had not left Beaumont alive that night in 1999. One investigator reportedly spent years replaying witness statements, maps, timelines, and parking lot sketches because he believed somebody in town was hiding something important. But without physical evidence, every theory sounded more like paranoia than proof. Meanwhile, the suspect quietly continued living an ordinary suburban life, while Kimberly's family suffered through decades of unanswered grief and emotional destruction. Neighbors reportedly described the middle-aged white man with thinning dirty blonde hair as calm, quiet, helpful, and forgettable, which only made the allegations later surrounding him even more horrifying. People who interacted with him daily allegedly had no idea they were standing beside someone connected to one of Beaumont's darkest secrets. Years later, investigators reportedly received information that reopened Kimberly's case with shocking force after decades of silence and dead ends. Detectives immediately began revisiting old witness interviews, forgotten timelines, and suspicious details connected to the quiet suburban suspect nobody had fully focused on before. The deeper authorities investigated, the more terrifying the entire situation allegedly became. Authorities allegedly discovered evidence suggesting Kimberly's remains had remained hidden for years in a location connected directly to the suspect. The revelation spread across Beaumont like wildfire because it implied the horrifying secret may have existed silently beside ordinary suburban life for decades without anyone fully understanding the truth. Neighbors reportedly began replaying strange smells, suspicious moments, and unsettling memories inside their minds with growing fear and disbelief. News stations across Texas immediately exploded with coverage once details connected to Kimberly's case began reaching the public again. True crime communities online became obsessed with the disturbing possibility that someone had allegedly hidden such a horrifying secret for decades while continuing to live a completely ordinary life. Millions of viewers struggled emotionally with the terrifying realization that monsters do not always appear monstrous at first glance. Kimberly's mother reportedly collapsed into tears after investigators finally shared the devastating breakthroughs surrounding her daughter's disappearance. After spending 25 years trapped between hope and grief, she finally stood on the edge of learning what truly happened to the pale young woman with tired blue eyes and narrow black-framed glasses who vanished after work in 1999. The emotional weight of decades without answers overwhelmed the entire family almost instantly. Kimberly's children were now adults carrying decades of emotional trauma connected to their mother's disappearance and the endless uncertainty surrounding her fate. They reportedly spent years imagining countless possibilities about what may have happened that night, but nothing prepared them for the horrifying revelations investigators eventually uncovered. Their mother had never simply become another forgotten missing person because her story had remained trapped inside Beaumont the entire time. The case quickly transformed from a forgotten cold case into one of Texas's most disturbing true crime stories because of the horrifying allegations surrounding the suspect. People everywhere struggled to understand how someone could allegedly hide such terrifying secrets for decades while continuing to appear calm and ordinary in public. The psychological horror of the case became just as disturbing as the crime itself. For Kimberly's family, however, the story was never about viral headlines, shocking allegations, or internet fascination surrounding the investigation. It was about the pale, exhausted young mother with shoulder-length dark brown layered bob hair, narrow black-framed glasses, teal scrubs, and tired blue eyes who disappeared while simply trying to return home after work one summer night in Texas. After decades of silence, Beaumont finally understood that Kimberly Langwell had never truly been forgotten because her story continued haunting the town long after she vanished. Detectives eventually reconstructed Kimberly Langwell's final known movements using scattered witness statements collected over multiple decades of investigation and interviews. Several co-workers remembered the pale, exhausted woman with shoulder-length dark brown layered bob hair and narrow black-framed glasses, slowly walking through the dim parking lot alone beneath flickering orange lights after finishing work that evening. After that moment, Kimberly seemingly vanished into darkness without leaving behind a single confirmed sighting anyone could fully trust. The original detectives reportedly spent countless sleepless nights driving Kimberly's normal route home while trying to understand where everything went wrong. They studied traffic patterns, timing estimates, abandoned roads, drainage ditches, nearby businesses, and possible witness locations, hoping some overlooked detail would finally reveal the truth. But every theory collapsed into frustration because Kimberly's disappearance felt almost surgically clean compared to most violent crimes investigators normally encountered. Beaumont itself slowly became part of the psychological horror surrounding Kimberly's disappearance because the town carried an eerie mixture of ordinary life and hidden fear. During the day, families shopped normally, children rode bicycles through quiet neighborhoods, and local businesses operated like nothing terrible had happened. But at night, conversations about Kimberly returned in whispers because many residents feared somebody dangerous had been hiding among them the entire time. Kimberly's mother reportedly developed a painful nightly routine that continued for years after her daughter vanished in 1999. Before going to sleep, she would stare silently at Kimberly's framed photograph showing the pale young woman with tired blue eyes, narrow black-framed glasses, and shoulder-length dark brown layered bob hair frozen forever inside an exhausted smile. Friends later described the emotional grief surrounding the family as something that never truly healed because uncertainty can psychologically destroy people far more slowly than death itself. Meanwhile, the suspect allegedly continued living a completely ordinary suburban existence while Kimberly's family emotionally collapsed under decades of unanswered pain and uncertainty. Neighbors reportedly remembered seeing the middle-aged white man with thinning dirty blonde hair casually mowing lawns, shopping for groceries, attending gatherings, and speaking politely with people around him for years. That terrifying contrast between normal behavior and alleged hidden horror became one of the most psychologically disturbing aspects of the entire case. As internet true crime communities exploded years later, Kimberly Langwell's case suddenly reached millions of people far beyond Beaumont, Texas. Online discussions became obsessed with the horrifying allegations, especially the disturbing possibility that somebody had allegedly hidden terrifying secrets for decades while blending seamlessly into ordinary suburban life. Many viewers admitted the case deeply unsettled them because it destroyed the comforting belief that evil always looks obviously dangerous from the outside. Detectives reportedly became emotionally shaken once they began fully understanding how long Kimberly's family had suffered without answers while the truth allegedly remained hidden nearby. One investigator later admitted that cold cases involving missing mothers emotionally affect detectives differently because investigators constantly imagine the fear and confusion experienced by the victims' children growing up without closure. The case slowly transformed from an old investigation into something deeply personal for everyone still working to uncover the truth. Detectives reportedly spent weeks carefully reconstructing timelines, witness statements, and forgotten evidence once the new information connected to Kimberly Langwell's disappearance finally emerged. Every tiny detail suddenly seemed important again, including old parking lot sightings, suspicious inconsistencies in earlier interviews, and strange behaviors people originally ignored back in 1999. The deeper investigators looked into the suspect's history and movements, the more horrifying the overall picture allegedly became. Authorities allegedly uncovered evidence suggesting Kimberly's remains had remained hidden for decades in a location connected directly to the suspect's property and daily life. Detectives arriving at the scene reportedly described the atmosphere as emotionally overwhelming because many investigators had spent years believing Kimberly's case might never be solved. Police lights illuminated the dark Beaumont neighborhood while stunned residents watched officers move carefully through an area they once considered completely ordinary. Neighbors reportedly began replaying years of strange memories and uncomfortable interactions once details surrounding the investigation became public knowledge. Some residents remembered unusual smells, odd late-night behavior, and unsettling moments they once dismissed because the suspect appeared calm and harmless on the surface. The horrifying realization that terrifying secrets may have existed silently beside them for decades emotionally shook the entire community. News coverage surrounding Kimberly Langwell's case exploded almost immediately once authorities publicly connected the suspect to the investigation. Television stations across Texas interrupted regular programming, while online true crime communities became obsessed with the disturbing possibility that somebody had allegedly hidden horrifying secrets for 25 years while living a completely normal life. Millions of people following the story admitted they could not emotionally process how someone could maintain ordinary routines while allegedly carrying such terrifying knowledge for decades. The suspect reportedly remained emotionally cold and unusually calm, while public attention surrounding the case intensified across Beaumont and the rest of Texas. People who once casually interacted with the middle-aged white man with thinning, dirty blonde hair suddenly began questioning every old conversation, memory, and interaction they had ever shared with him over the years. Friends, neighbors, and former acquaintances struggled psychologically with the terrifying possibility that they had unknowingly spent years around someone connected to unimaginable horror. Detectives reportedly described the emotional breakthrough in Kimberly's case as both heartbreaking and deeply satisfying because it finally gave her family long-awaited answers after decades of uncertainty. Several investigators admitted the case haunted them personally because they had spent years imagining the emotional pain Kimberly's children experienced while growing up without their mother. Solving the mystery did not erase the trauma, but it finally ended the unbearable psychological torture created by endless unanswered questions. Kimberly's family reportedly gathered together privately after learning the devastating truth surrounding her disappearance and the horrifying allegations connected to the suspect. For the first time in 25 years, they no longer had to imagine endless possibilities about where Kimberly may have gone after leaving work that night in 1999. The truth was emotionally devastating, but uncertainty had finally been replaced with painful clarity. Beaumont itself reportedly changed emotionally after the truth surrounding Kimberly Langwell's case finally emerged decades later. Residents who once viewed the town as quiet and ordinary suddenly realized terrifying secrets can sometimes survive hidden beneath completely normal suburban life for years without detection. Kimberly's disappearance permanently became part of Beaumont's psychological history, haunting the community long after the investigation reached its devastating conclusion. For Kimberly's loved ones, however, the story was never truly about headlines, internet fascination, or viral true crime discussions spreading across the country. It was about the pale, exhausted young mother with shoulder-length dark brown layered bob hair, narrow black-framed glasses, teal medical scrubs, tired blue eyes, and a gentle smile who disappeared while simply trying to return home after work one summer night in Texas. Decades later, Beaumont finally understood that Kimberly Langwell had never truly disappeared because the emotional scars left behind by her story continued haunting the town long after the case itself ended. If Kimberly Langwell's story stayed with you, follow the Illustrative Detective on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook for more dark true crime stories, cold cases, disturbing disappearances, and cinematic comic book crime documentaries that uncover the terrifying secrets hidden behind ordinary life. Every follow, share, comment, and subscription helps the channel continue creating deep investigative storytelling while keeping forgotten victims remembered instead of lost to time. If you would also like to support the channel directly, viewers in Kenya can use M-Pesa using the account name Alexander Wangari and number +254 0110 969 055, while viewers outside Kenya can support through Remitly, Sendwave, Western Union, and other services that allow international money transfers to Kenya.